My home farm is, gosh, my whole lot is a third of an acre. And I have roughly estimated I use about half of that for produce, maybe a little less than half, but I'm expanding this year. So it'll be about half of a third of an acre. So it's a pretty small amount. But yeah, just seeing what all can be done in that small of a space is pretty incredible. I also had the chance to work with Seasons Micro Farm this summer, just seasonally 1 day a week. And Sarah at Seasons Micro Farm, I actually don't know technically how much space that is, but she has two hoop houses and then an outdoor field and is just very, very efficient with how things are laid out. It's just been great, so informative for my own work and for what I try to do at my house, just seeing how you can lay things out so that they really make sense, so that you can get the most out of your space, and so that it can be sort of flow with the work that needs to happen.
It's the Growing for Market podcast. Hello, everyone, and thank you again for joining me. I'm April Parms Jones for this Growing for Market podcast. Today is a special, fabulous, amazing day. We have Sarah Gretsinger from the beautiful city of Akron, Ohio, and she is here to talk to us all about CSAs and growing in an urban environment and utilizing your space to the utmost. Sarah is a proud graduate of Kent State University, and she's experienced in horticulture. She has worked with produce directly, worked with stores, health food stores. She's been a distributor, and she has over 10 years of experience in growing. And so I am so excited to have you on, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I feel very honored to be here, so very
Well,
excited.
I do have to drop the deets. I am a customer of Sarah, so I know directly of her amazingness and greatness. She was kind enough to accept me as a CSA customer, and we have been just embarking on the beauty and the bounty of the land in Firestone Park in Akron, Ohio. And I am overwhelmed with joy to have you on today to talk about your journey and the steps that you take and, just all the care and techniques that you really put into your food and also your flowers. So, can you tell me a little bit about what inspires you to work the land?
Oh my gosh, yes. So we have to go back in time a little bit, but I have had the joy and honor of working with so many amazing people over the years. I've had so many great mentors that at the time I might not have known where it was really leading, but I realized I was really interested in working with plants, working outside, working with my hands. And especially growing plants. Like you mentioned earlier, I have about 10 years experience in horticulture. I also worked for a few years for my friend's small business, working between local farmers to distribute their produce, maple syrup, and grain products to health food stores in the area. And that was when I really was first introduced to produce farming on a smaller scale. And by smaller, I mean like smaller than 50 acres, because there's so many produce farms that are much larger than that. So, and most of these farms that we worked with at his company were Amish farms. So a lot of the farming was done by hand, worked the land with horses, and just a fairly small amount of people actually doing the work. It was usually families that, the kids were involved and all that. So that was really eye-opening to me. Like, wow, we can really grow so much amazing produce here in Northeast Ohio. There's a lot we can do. And just seeing some of the techniques getting away from more conventional farming and more into organic farming. We worked with a lot of certified organic farms. And co-ops such as Greenfield Farms, picked up stuff from there many times. Very, very inspiring to see these ways of working with the land that are really regenerative and, uh, you know, good for the plants, good for the environment as a whole, and good for everybody who is partaking in that produce. So those were some earlier inspirations. And over the years, I've just become more and more passionate about trying to like relocalize the food economy and really learn for myself, but also be able to hopefully pass on information about growing our own food, especially on a small scale that is maybe more manageable for people to enter into, for anybody who doesn't have 20 acres and a farming background like I did not have growing up. Yeah, I've just become more passionate about it over the years.
That's amazing. And I mean, you've covered so much in that short just introduction about yourself, which is very impressive. But what I loved is when you said relocalizing the food system. I love that phrase. It's sexy, it's fun, it's interesting. And what I love about it is that I feel like we both are participants of it. And
Yeah.
it really does bring such happiness and joy to your life when you can just go down the street and pick up your food from your local farmer. It's just so freeing and so empowering and exciting because you're able to, like, you're my neighbor and I invest in you and then you invest in me by giving me delicious food that helps me, be happier and healthier. And I just love that. And so can you tell me a little bit more about your concept of relocalizing the food system and what that means to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, years ago when like I was just describing when my eyes were open to like what all we can do right here in Northeast Ohio with not that much land. And then I also have had the chance to work with farms that are utilizing oftentimes less than a half an acre, or up to an acre. But the last couple of years, I've worked with Thaxton Family Farm, which was formerly Thaxton's Organic Garlic. I've been their farm manager the last three seasons. And that was really my first point of stepping into farming more fully in my life. Because before that, I had a garden and was still working full time at the garden center and the greenhouse. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of trying to do too much right now, and I'm never really going to be able to fully pursue farming if I don't make the space for it. So, but anyway, the at the Thaxton's farm, we mostly grow the produce in about a quarter of an acre, sometimes even more like an eighth of an acre spot, depending on the year, depending on how much garlic we grew.
Mhm.
Um, and that has just been so fulfilling. I've learned so much from managing that scale of a farm. It's more than I have at my house. My home farm is, gosh, my whole lot is a third of an acre. And I have roughly estimated I use about half of that for produce, maybe a little less than half, but I'm expanding this year. So it'll be about half of a third of an acre. So it's a pretty small amount. But yeah, just seeing what all can be done in that small of a space is pretty incredible. I also had the chance to work with Seasons Micro Farm this summer, just seasonally, one day a week. And Sarah at Seasons Micro Farm, I actually don't know technically how much space that is, but she has two hoop houses and then an outdoor field and is just very, very efficient with how things are laid out. It's just been great, so informative for my own work and for what I try to do at my house, just seeing how you can lay things out so that they really make sense, so that you can get the most out of your space, and so that it can be sort of flow with the work that needs to happen.
And now let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. It's with their generous support that we can bring you the podcast for free.
If you have never attended an ASCFG conference, there is no better time to invest in yourself. The Association of Specialty Cut Flowers is welcoming Growing for Market readers to register at the ASCFG member rate for the 2026 conference in Albuquerque on January 13th and 14th. You'll meet well-known podcasters Charlotte Smith of the Profitable Mindset podcast and Scott Shepard of the Flower podcast. These dynamic speakers, along with Dr. John Dole, Laura Langenick, and Robert Washington Vaughns, fill out the first day of sessions. Day one will be topped off with a trade show and social time where you can meet industry suppliers and mingle with new friends over appetizers and drinks. There will be something for everyone with concurrent sessions on day two. Choose which sessions you'll attend and team up with a friend to swap notes from one another. When asked what the best part of being at an ASCFG conference is, Dave Dowling said, "The conversations with other growers during the breaks, taking in all the info you weren't expecting to learn." Rebecca Kutzer-Rice of Moonshot Farm shares, "Every time I attend an ASCFG conference, my farm leaps ahead and I make lifelong friends. Can't wait to meet you in Albuquerque." Visit ascfg.org for conference information. A well-built high tunnel is one of the smartest investments a small farm can make. It protects your crops, extends your season, and keeps income rolling in even through winter. Nifty Hoops builds complete Gothic high tunnels that are easy to install and built to last. Their easy, bolt-together construction makes setup straightforward and efficient, whether it's a small backyard hoop house or a dozen large production-scale high tunnels, especially through their community build option, where professional builders work alongside your crew, family, or neighbors to build each structure, usually in a single day. Most growers go with Nifty's full setup: steel-framed end walls, roll-up sides, baseboards, double plastic with inflation, automated vents, and real doors, all priced to make the best choice the easy one. Nifty is a small crew out of Michigan using U.S. steel and working hands-on with growers across the country. They'll help evaluate your site, handle NRCS paperwork, and if they're building with you, they'll even float your cost share until after the build. Visit niftyhoops.com to learn more. Farm more seasons. Grow more food. Nifty Hoops.
And now, back to the show.
Now, I love that you're talking about garlic because the last person we had on, Beth Everett of Meadowlark Hearth Farm in Nebraska, we were talking about garlic as well. And she grows out various varieties. Now, Beth has, I think she said like 500 acres. So
Yeah.
she's not. She's
A little
not
bigger.
a little bigger. She's not just doing garlic. But could you walk us through for our listeners if they wanted to just say, like you said, maybe just start out with garlic and they just wanted to do like an eighth of an acre, a 16th of an acre, a 24th of an acre.
Yeah.
Just keep going smaller and
10
smaller.
by 10 plot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Of garlic. And they wanted to sell the garlic, right? Because garlic does store very well. And that's something that you can sell relatively easy throughout the season once you harvest it. Can you walk us a little bit through the steps that you would take to start out that little garlic production?
Sure. Yeah, it's funny because garlic was the first crop I ever grew at my first garden, which was at my parents' house in Streetsboro, which just happens to be like a few minutes down the street from the Thaxton's farm, even though I didn't meet them till later in life. Anyway, yes, my friend and longtime mentor, his name's Carl, that's whose business that I described earlier, where we worked with the various farms, helped me to first till up and kill the lawn, the existing lawn, in the sunniest possible place where there's both decent drainage but also adequate rainfall and moisture. Depending on your area that you live in, where your property is, it's going to really change how you want to set this up. But at my folks' place in Streetsboro, it it's very heavy clay soils, so we wanted to choose a place that was not in a lower spot so that when it rained, there wouldn't be any flooding. And we also chose a fairly flat spot so there wouldn't be a whole lot of erosion when it rained really hard. So choosing your spot is actually very critical, especially for garlic, as it is super necessary to get as much sun as possible. So anyway, you'll want to prepare your soil. So terminating the grass, which I usually use like a shallow tillage method. And then you can we added horse manure because our neighbors there have horses. So that was like a no-brainer. So add that in. And then any other like compost, leaf compost is really great for garlic. And then if you want to go like the next level, which would be great for your crop, would be using like bone meal, and you can use some organic amendments like Revita 8 through 3 is really good for that as well. Putting that down and then marking out your plots. And for garlic, you separate the bulbs into individual cloves, and then you will plant those cloves about 6 inches apart on all sides. So you'll make out your rows where you want to have them planted. I usually go 3 to 4 garlic cloves, and then however long the length is, 6 inches apart. And then we usually go like as far deep as your thumb can press them into the soil.
That's awesome. So it seems relatively easy, like steps that even a novice could take,
Hmm.
and then they would be able to harvest. So you plant in October, and then when do you
Yeah.
harvest?
Yeah, so usually, like, wait until at least 1 or 2 frosts, which is different every single year in Ohio, as we know very well.
Yeah.
This year, it's pretty warm, actually. We've had, a couple light frosts, so right now would be great, but I personally probably will wait another week to 10 days just for practical reasons, but yeah, so you'll plant in the kind of mid-fall, and then generally you will harvest the following late June or early July. Again, very dependent on the weather year to year. Some years it's end of June, some years it's mid-July. The past 3 years we've harvested like the right around the 4th of July. So again, it's like how much rainfall is there? Has it been warm? Has it been really unseasonably cold like it was this June, and then very, very hot. It's like constantly kind of like being prepared for what you think should happen and then adjusting, fine tuning as you get closer and closer and see what the weather does.
Awesome. And then when you're harvesting, what is your professional opinion? Now, I see that people harvest and then they just have the individual garlic, right? So they have the bulb and then they have the little shoot that looks beautiful, right? So it's very artistic. And then some people take the little whole garlic and then they braid them. And then
Mm,
sometimes they put flowers in them and things like that. What is your thought on which is the best? Or
mm.
what's the difference between the two if you're going to be marketing and selling the garlic?
Yeah, totally. So usually what I will do is hand dig them, like at the scale that I personally am growing with the Kale Next Door and at even at Thaxton Family Farm where we're growing between 6 and 10 bulbs a year, we still do it all by hand. So either a shovel or you can use a broad fork. The broad fork, you have to be really, really careful where you're putting all those tines in. So it's kind of like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, with what is more efficient. But we hand dig, and then our personal method is pull the bulb out carefully so that you keep the entire plant intact. And then usually I'll wear like a cloth glove and just like rub the soil off of the outside papers, not perfectly clean, but just so you get the larger chunks off. And then we will make piles as we dig. And once you get like an armful of a pile, move it into the shade as soon as possible. Because if you keep it out in the sun, it will both harden that soil so that it's more difficult to remove. It takes a lot more time to get the bulb clean, but it also can actually sort of cook that garlic as since it was just underneath the soil, it's very sensitive to being right out in the direct sun. So you want to be mindful of that. And then we use forks, just metal forks, to kind of brush out the soil from the roots. Not perfectly, but just again, so there's no like huge dirt clumps that would contain moisture and take longer to cure if you don't clean them. So we get them about that clean. So it's not perfect. It's not what you see in the store, like porcelain white. It'll be
Yes.
still a little bit of soil on it. And then you can store it lots of different ways. Personally, what I've learned from the Thaxtons is to make, just for simplicity's sake, make bundles of 10 and 10 and then take twine and you can tie a knot so that it slides on one string on both ends. So you have your two bunches on one string, and then you can throw that over like a clothesline, or they in their barn, they have these drying racks that are wooden and then metal poles in between them. So you can just hang them right up and they can stay like that drying for months and then remain there until they're sold. So it's a very like touch it as least times as possible approach. And then also it makes it very easy for if you're growing more than just a few heads, you can count them faster too because they're in bunches of 20. So it kind of has multiple uses to storing them like that. So usually we will get them all processed to that point. And then as you are doing that, we also will size them. So just simply setting out the biggest ones first for seed stock because you kind of have to pay yourself first on that. If you want to regrow that variety, you should always set aside your nicest, largest bulbs and cloves in the bulbs to replant for next year. So that's always the first order of business, and then sorting them from largest to smallest. And then from that point, usually I will choose a mixture of like a few mediums and a few larger ones to make braids with, just simply because since you are braiding them, it's already like a value added product. So you could use maybe not your biggest bulbs just because those already are very easy to sell at a market or to use for planting. You can sell both for eating and planting when you grow garlic. So it's great. There's kind of two different markets for it. But yeah, then you can braid them and you can add dried flowers in, you can add dried herbs to just make a really, really cool product that has a long shelf life. It can be decorative, but also edible, hang up in your kitchen or in your pantry. It's very fun to do. And usually the soft neck variety are best for braiding because just like their name, the actual plant is quite soft because it doesn't grow a garlic scape like a hardneck does.
Mhm.
So they're very pliable. And usually you would want to braid those within the first month or so after harvesting, because if you wait too long, they become kind of brittle.
That's good to know. This is like new information to me. Of course, I know that I buy garlic from people to plant, but I never thought that if like I'm growing my own garlic, I could sell some of it, which is great, but then also I can eat some of it, which is amazing. But then also I can sell another part of it to someone who wants to also grow their own garlic.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, the gifts keep on giving with garlic. I love it.
Yes. And
I
every
love it.
year, each clove will become an entire new bulb. So each year, you automatically are multiplying your stock of garlic by however many cloves are in the bulb. So
Yeah,
oftentimes with soft necks too, there's like 10 to sometimes 20 cloves in a bulb. So that can multiply very quickly.
that's
It
amazing.
Yeah, it's a really great first crop to grow for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a really fun first crop and it has so many uses. I know personally I've been eating your garlic, which is amazing.
Thank you.
And then also, my family had a little bout of like sickness that
Mm.
came upon us, and we used the garlic to like really help boost our immune system and like fight off the crud and yeah, super super effective. And so,
Great.
I'm in love with garlic. I love it. It's the best.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
So, as we're talking about localizing our economy, I was telling a friend that I feel as if with this localized economy, one person, such as yourself, pops up and grows something, and then somebody else is inspired, and then they do sourdough or microgreens or some other kind of thing. And so it just creates this whole system of people in your community that are all growing individual things that makes the economy stronger and more robust, and it just like makes life more interesting for sure
Yeah.
because you have more variety.
Yeah, absolutely. I love too, we are so blessed to have so many farmers markets, right? In
Mhm.
not just our county, but the surrounding counties. And we also have great produce auctions not far from us. Like,
Yes.
yeah, we live in a place that is actually very abundant in seasonal produce and storage crops. We might not have like oranges or or
Yeah.
bananas, but we have
Yes.
a lot of crops that grow here, and my mind was blown when I first really started to realize all that we can do right in our own yards.
Absolutely. And we're doing our podcast at Akron Public Library, so shout out to them. It's exciting. Their resources. Thank you, Public Library. So, as we're talking about varieties, how do you choose the varieties of produce that you put into your CSA or that you sell at farmers markets? Because as a customer, you have a wide variety of different things. My family loves the little small, little cherry tomatoes, I guess.
Yeah.
Call them kind of orange and delicious. But how do you choose? There's so many seed varieties. What are some of the thoughts that you go into deciding your decision making with the seeds?
Sure, sure. Yeah. So mostly I'm informed by what I enjoy growing and enjoy eating, to be honest. That's where it all starts. And two, just basing on what I have grown in the past, what is fairly manageable to grow. And then over the past few years that I've personally started going to markets, just noticing what customers respond to, noticing what like my friends respond to or say that they like to eat, what recipes are people trying to make, and also just going back again to like what do I want to eat on a weekly basis, what variety of things are also like realistic to be able to manage growing and processing week to week, things like that. So I try to really strike a balance between what yeah, like is manageable for me to grow, what's interesting, what I'm interested in growing, and then like a little more finely tuned at a given farmer's market, for example, like what produce are the other farmers growing? So we don't have like too much competition of the exact same thing or like too much flooding the market of the same thing. Like how can we bring more diversity to it and like just have a little bit more of an interesting offering. So I am really interested in like specialty radishes. I love growing like rainbow carrots, which I feel like small farmers as a whole, that's not like news to anybody. I think a lot of people are growing that. But in terms of what people are really interested in, I think people do really respond to like the more colorful, the more unusual varieties. But yeah, it really is striking a balance there with like what I want to grow, what people want to eat and buy. So I'm always trying to keep my eyes and ears open for feedback and also to find new fun things that might be great to incorporate.
Now, in our family, we really love the eggplants. What variety is that? That's a
Yes.
question for my mother. She's like, "What kind of variety is that?" It's like, "I don't know."
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the purple and white striped one is
Okay, yes.
I think it's pronounced Listata de Gandia or
Okay.
Gandia, something like that. Yes, it's like a smaller white and purple striped eggplant, which
And
is
then
really
what about the
fun.
dark purple one?
So I grow a couple Asian eggplant varieties.
Okay.
I'm not sure if those are the ones, but then
Maybe
there's
that's the ones.
sure,
Maybe.
sure. Yeah, yeah. One of them I think is Ping Tung Long, which
Okay.
I really like that one. It's like a lighter purple. It's
Okay,
quite
yes.
beautiful.
That's it. It's the lighter purple one.
Yes, and then I
Yes.
think I also grew Thanos was another variety of like
Okay.
a more standard shaped eggplant.
Okay. Yeah, the eggplants were total fire, just like huge head.
Thanks.
We love them
It's
all. We're like, "Yay, eggplant." And
yay.
normally we don't like eggplant, I'm not gonna lie.
Really?
We really weren't eggplant people, but I think that's the key that we're talking about is when
Mm,
you have it localized, like you're down the street from us, we're eating the same food and we're also breathing the same air and the same water. And it just tasted
yeah.
like spectacular. Like I'd never had eggplant before. Because
That's
normally eggplant's kind of, not so flavorful. And when you cook it, it doesn't really do its best. And it kind of just wimps out at the end. But this was just like spectacular from the beginning to the end. So yeah, it
thanks.
makes a huge difference when you have localized food. It really does. It's
Totally.
revolutionary for sure.
Yeah, and I think growing in a way where your soil is healthier makes a huge difference in what the produce actually tastes like. It's not just better for the environment, but it's also better literally as a customer and a consumer.
For sure. Now, when we're talking about soil, which is so important, as every grower, you want to improve your soil year after year. How is that process for you in a smaller sort of situation? Is it easier because you have a smaller space, or are there more challenges than large acreage of land?
Yes. So the way I started at my own house was I started somewhat small and have every year expanded a little bit more and more. Again, back to this concept of like what is manageable because I have up until this point just I have worked other jobs for income while developing the Kale Next Door, developing my urban farm. So I wanted to start not more than I could handle, and I truly wasn't sure what that was because up until I owned my house, I was just growing on a small plot at my folks' place. So I began the same way I started my garden years ago at their house, which was first killing the lawn. So thankfully, my soil at my house actually has a fair level of original topsoil there. So it's like really nice and dark colored soil right under that lawn. So that was like amazing to see. And then it's actually a pretty sandy soil, which was totally new for me. I was used to growing in clay, which is very, very different than growing in sandy soil. You need to irrigate a lot more, unfortunately. But thankfully, there already was a pretty healthy topsoil at the top of it. So, anyhow, I start by generally tilling just to kill the lawn and then using generally horse manure, leaf compost, things like that. I also make my own compost, but for the size of my beds, I don't really produce enough compost to fully cover them at this point, but I do add what I can. And then I generally will purchase a leaf compost from there's a place called Akron's Finest Mulch. Little shout out to them. They have a really great leaf compost that it's like sifted or filtered 3 times. So it's really nice and fine. And I tried it this past year, 2025, with the deep compost method from Ben Hartman's book. I was very inspired by that. So using that as both a mulch and also to feed the soil as it breaks down. At first, I will use the tillage to kill the lawn and to incorporate some of the initial amendments, and then everything from that point on just goes on the top. And then also, I mentioned it with the garlic as well, but I love like Revita 833. My soil is a little bit low in potassium. I had it tested a couple years ago. And so I will use an organic potassium amendment as well. That's another thing to mention if you're trying to start a garden or to start an urban farm or any type of growing. I think it's really worth doing a soil test just to see where you stand and where you stand on organic matter, where you stand with all of the basic components of the soil. So that's been helpful as a little bit of a guide. But yeah, so after initially making the beds, I have been using no-till methods to manage things once they're
Awesome. So it is like a whole plan and strategy, but you just take it step by step by step, and then you modify as you go along.
yeah, exactly.
And now, let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. It's with their generous support that we can bring you the podcast for free.
Renewal season is here, and the work you put in now is what brings members back next year. Melanie from Shake Fork Community Farm, who you may remember as a guest on this podcast, brought in $40,000 in renewals in just 2 weeks. Now she's sharing her exact strategy in a free live workshop and downloadable playbook from Farmhand. Get the playbook and watch on demand at farmhand.partners/GFM. That's farmhand.partners/GFM. Looking for innovative packaging solutions to take your business to the next level? Look no further than Aru Company, your one-stop shop for all your packaging needs. Aru offers sustainable and comprehensive packaging solutions for the floral, produce, and specialty packaging industries, ensuring you receive high quality products customized to your needs. Are you starting to think about the holidays? We are. Add festive flair to your plants with Glitterati e-covers from Aru Company. These covers feature an etched pattern that mimics the sparkle of glitter without the mess or environmental impact. Non-shedding and easy to use, Glitterati e-covers bring effortless shimmer to your potted plants. Available in a variety of colors and styles, they offer a simple yet dazzling holiday look. Make your plants shine the smart, sustainable way this season. And for our Growing for Market listeners, we've got a special offer just for you. Use the code GFM15 during checkout to enjoy an exclusive 15% discount on their web shop. For more options, be sure to visit Aru Company at aru.com and discover the complete range. Because when it comes to quality and innovation, Aru Company is the name you can trust.
Hey, it's Lindsay from Grown By. There are a lot of farm sales platforms out there, but there's only one that's cooperatively owned by farmers. And that's Grown By, your all-in-one solution to simplify farm sales. I'm proud and excited to share 2 new features now available on top of the tools you already know and love. Number 1, our customizable CSA box builder. It allows your customers to simply say what they'd like in their share, and Grown By matches their preferences with your weekly harvest. Number 2, our new wholesale-only marketplace. Developed with the Culinary Institute of America, it makes your life easier with a dedicated shop for your wholesale customers. No more texting those chefs. Combining retail and wholesale inventories and records. And, drumroll, automatic payments on due dates. No more chasing down late payments. These new features sit alongside our popular online sales and traditional subscription CSA tools, making it easier than ever to manage your farm's business. As you start to get ready for next season, we'd love to hear from you and see if our cooperative can be a partner in growing your farm. Visit us at grownby.com. That's GROWNBY.com.
And now, back to the show.
And then how do you figure out with your crop planning in advance? Like, do you have inspirations of what you want to grow, and then thinking about also what do you put together? Like, what are your companions? Like dating.
Yeah,
What are the
totally.
companions that you put together? Do you have any tips on
Yes.
companions?
Sure. Yeah. So in terms of crop planning, I am really big on crop rotation, and cover cropping in between cash crops when applicable. Sometimes it's kind of tricky for certain beds, but I do, with the crop rotation, try to give certain beds a break so that I can grow at least a small round of a cover crop on them. That's been, I think, very helpful in building the soil over the last few years as well. But yeah, just I try to think about offering a range of like leafy greens, of course, kale, collard, Swiss chard, things like that. Root vegetables, so turnips, radishes, beets, carrots, and then warmer weather crops like eggplants, tomatoes, peppers, and like a pretty great variety of those I try to achieve. This year, unfortunately, the drought was really hard on the peppers, but next year I'm going to go even harder on the peppers because I love them. They're just like beautiful, and people really seem to like peppers as an option. But yeah, I try to think about having just a full both display at market, but also thinking about, as I develop my CSA program, having enough crops available so that I can make each week's share different. I hope that I achieved that. Yeah, I have a notebook where I sort of plot it all out. I take notes every week, like, okay, I know this will be ready, this will be ready, to just give as good of a variety and as wide of a breadth of all the crops as I possibly can. I also do a fair amount of herbs as well. So
Yeah,
just to kind of like round it out.
we're a big fan of the sage.
Good. Yeah, me
Love the
too.
sage. Yeah. We
Me
make
too.
sage water, which is so delicious.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard of that, but I love that. I'm
It's
about to try
really
that.
tasty. It is.
Okay.
And it's like a little nutrient boost and it's tasty and flavorful and it's so strong. When you have it, like we've talked about, when it's local, it's so much stronger. It's like 10 times stronger than the store
Mm,
stage. So you just
yeah.
have to put like a little bit in and it's just like, oh, and it's just,
Ooh.
yeah, it's a nice, refreshing drink.
Okay, I'll have
Um,
to get your recipe.
recently, you were at House 330 and you did a fabulous job at the farmers market there. They're doing a new farmers market thing, which is really exciting and fun. But your display was spectacularly beautiful. People can go on Instagram, and I think you may have photos. But how do you come up with the concept of the display? It was very like as a customer, it was very alluring and interesting, and I could actually see everything that you had out. You had some
Mm.
things elevated, you had some things in the back, some things in the front. It was just and pricing was right there, very easy to know, like, this is what I have, this is the pricing per bunch or whatever. How did you come up with the display design?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I really do put a lot of thought into it and I really enjoy making displays. Yeah, that truly could be credited back a long time ago with my inspirations, but I worked at the greenhouse in the garden center that I mentioned, Suncrest Gardens. It's a great garden center, and they take huge pride in their displays. And that was where I first learned to really like merchandise products, both plants and other merchandise. So I yeah, I love making displays. And part of my winter work is at a florist in Akron called Leaf. I love working there. It totally is like using my fine arts background, but in like a more hands-on way, doing floral design, but I also get to make displays there of product. And I think of setting up my market setup, my table, much like a display you would see at a store, or also you could think about it like an arrangement, like a flower arrangement, but scaled up. I mean, it's nice to have different tiers, different like levels, visually and in space. And also, though, it's nice to have like clusters that then kind of come together as separate components to become like a larger image with different texture, different colors. All that being said, I feel like it is easy to get a little chaotic. So that's where having the bigger clusters of one thing is kind of nice. It's like a little bit of a rest for your brain. I do try to have the pricing pretty clear because it can become overwhelming, at least for me, sometimes trying to find what is what. So I really do try to keep signage nearby just because as a customer, I want the experience to be really easy. I want them to enjoy it as much as they could. So yeah, I really enjoy putting together displays. It's very fun.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point that you made that that is a skill set that you've worked hard at and that you've studied and that you're constantly developing. But it is such a great marketing standpoint because it's so memorable when you think back. So, like when we left, I was like, oh, we just got the little tomatoes because that's what my family wanted at that moment. And then I was like, oh my gosh, were there onions? And I was like, I need onions. And my mom was like, yes, the onions were there. You didn't see them. And so it was just a great idea, even if you have a customer who comes, only buys one item, if they have someone with them or they think back in their mind, they'll be able to fully realize what you had to sell. And then next time they'll come and say, oh, yeah, I also need to make sure I get this item. And so it seems like for me as a customer, it seemed like a great way to upsell and increase your sales by really taking the time to display things in a creative way. It made a big difference for sure.
I love hearing that. Thank you.
So, thinking about creativity, you also in your CSA have flowers, which
Mm.
is an addition to the flat vegetable section, right? It's an add on, I guess I would say. It's a fabulous add on, totally worth the investment. Can you talk about the process that you go through with the flowers? Because every week it's such a beauty to have like beautifully arranged fresh flowers. It adds a lot of happiness and joy. And can you tell us a little bit of your thinking about that?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, so working for the florist in Akron, I have really just become so inspired to grow more flowers. So I have always had some flowers at my house since I bought it in 2022. But over the past few years, I have really carved out some more space to really intentionally have more flowers. At first, it started as just wanting to have sort of pollinator beds and beds that benefited birds and hummingbirds and, pollinators, of course. But then I just realized, like, oh my gosh, there is a lot of potential to do bouquets and offer flowers as something that I bring to market. And then this year was the first time I had the add on for the CSA for flower bouquet, which I so enjoyed doing. It was like, it's different enough than harvesting produce that it's a really nice break for me in the day to just kind of like, okay, let's take a break from that for a second. Let's go see what's ready. It's very like therapeutic to harvest and get everything ready. And then to sit there and then make unique bouquets every week is just, for me, very enjoyable, but also very challenging because depending on the weather and what time of the year it is, there will be more or less that might be abundant at a certain moment. Um, this year was really the first year where I offered that for the CSA. So I had that many bouquets that were needed to be made every week. Whereas last year I brought them to market just sort of as like a fun extra thing. But this year I had to kind of step up like, okay, yes, like every week we need them to be like to this degree of, full and beautiful and interesting. So yeah, I'm still very, like, early in developing that, but I have a long list of flowers that I'm adding in for next year. I already have a few things started, that are perennial, so I'm really looking forward to developing and growing more flowers next year. I'm gonna do some dahlias as well, so
Awesome.
yes, I can't wait.
Exciting. And what I loved about the flowers is that they were so fresh. They lasted for me like almost 3 weeks, which was
Oh my
amazing.
gosh.
And
Yay.
then they dried out, and I still would leave them out for, like, another 3
Mm.
weeks or 2 weeks or
Yeah.
something, and so you just always had flowers everywhere, and then when I was done with them, I could make some of the flowers and put them into a tea, which was really tasty and
Hmm.
delicious, and then
Yeah.
the other ones I would just spread out into my yard and say, "Oh, maybe I'll get some flowers," because it's sometimes hard to propagate the flowers, and so it was just so bountiful and useful, and it just brought such, happiness and joy to the house, and you can just see, like, the process of drying out. That was nice and beautiful.
Yeah, week to week.
Yes, week to week. So it was really, really great, and it taught me, even though I am a grower, about the flowers and their seasonality.
Mm,
Right? Because I feel
totally.
like sometimes there's a huge disconnect between we see flowers, you can get them year round, all the flowers pretty much. And so there's a disconnect of like what is in season in the spring and what is in season in the summer and what is in season in the fall. And so it reconnected me with that. And I love that as well.
Oh, that's great. That's so
Yeah.
nice to hear. Yeah, I'm glad they lasted so long for you too. I always I try to keep them cool for as long as possible, and then I'm like, "Okay, good luck." So that's
Yeah,
great.
they lasted a really that was the longest that flowers have ever lasted, and so, yeah, it was really nice. Because sometimes you get them commercially, we've all had those experiences, at least I have, with
Mhm.
the roses. You get them, they look beautiful for a couple days, and then they just start turning on you day by
Totally.
day, and it's sort
Yes.
of sad and disappointing, but this was not like that at all, so it made a big difference. So, what is your favorite thing about small-scale farming?
Yeah, my favorite thing, oh my gosh, what a question. I love that. I love the scale that I am currently growing at is I've tried to be super intentional in making it sustainable for myself. As the only person working on the farm, I'm the owner, the
Yep.
farmer, the social media person, all of the above. So I do love I feel like I have a great freedom to do what I want to do within my space, but also yeah, there's a lot of ways I could go with it. And I feel like there's a great abundance within, yeah, just like a lot of opportunity right now. So I'm trying to just really kind of fine tune what exactly it is I'm doing and what I'm offering so that it is both sustainable as a farm, as a business, but also sustainable for me. I have never had the opportunity to work from home in any of my jobs. I've always had like in person, more like manual labor type of jobs. So it's really great to, have that short of a commute.
Yes.
And it's great to it's very important for me to work outside as much of the year as possible, just because I feel more connected with my environment, with my surroundings. I feel like my mental health and my body are just more regulated when I am outside most of the time. Uh, so that feels like a great privilege to be able to do and to do work that is really fulfilling to me. Honestly, like having conversations with you right now and the other conversations we've had this year, getting to know each other through our farming is just great to be able to connect with people and others in the community that are interested in eating food that was grown locally and
Yeah.
food that is healthy. And yeah, it's all very fulfilling.
For sure. And it is so hard to find fulfilling work. And so
No.
to be able to have that is, like you said, such a privilege. And so my last question is, I feel like this is a new movement of people growing in their home environment on small lots of land and really doing the most that they can, and then specializing as well into their little small area, whether it's just vegetables, it's just flowers, it's just fruit, it's just nuts, microgreens, mushrooms, because those all work so well in smaller spaces for sure. What are your tips for people to grow at home?
Mm. Yeah, I think grow garlic, which you have already got to. That one is great. It's a great
Big power.
it's very, like, not immediately rewarding because you do have to wait 9 months to harvest it, which is
Yes.
unusual. Usually, it's, not that long of a turnaround, for a lot of things, but, um, yeah, I honestly would recommend figuring out, like, what you like to eat, make a little list of I don't know, 5 to 10 max things to start out with just so you don't overwhelm yourself with the different needs of different plants. But yeah, choose some things that you personally are interested in eating as well, because until you are at the point where you're ready to try and sell produce, you are probably going to get a lot of yield at once out of certain crops. And at first, that can be really overwhelming. It's like the first year that I grew tomatoes at my farm was before I had any markets that I was going to. I was still working full time at the garden center. And I was harvesting like 200 pounds of tomatoes per week
Oh my
in
gosh.
August through September. And I had nowhere to sell them
Oh my
because I
gosh.
didn't expect that.
Yeah.
But now I know if you plant 40 tomato plants, like you're gonna have some tomato. And you should probably have a plan, or I hope you really like to can. Maybe you can have your family or your friends over and just have a little canning party.
That'd be
Which
fun.
is, like, so abundant and great, but also,
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, if you are not ready, then you might wanna get ready.
Yes,
No,
exactly.
but finding, yeah, just like a little list of things you're interested in eating or sharing, and learning about, and then just trying to do your best at growing those few things. And every single year that you grow something, you are gonna learn from it. You're gonna learn something new. So just to not get discouraged when there's inevitable like pest issues, weather issues, things like that, because we really all are dealing with that more and more, unfortunately, as the years go on. And um, yeah, I think it's also great to have resources like this where you can listen to other farmers and things that they've gone through and their solutions.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about small scale farming and seed selection and crop planning and soil and how to relocalize your economy, flowers, soil, and more. So I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your expertise and your knowledge.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so, so much for having me. It's been so fun. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome.